Good day wherever you are, and welcome back to Below the Curve Gaming. It's Martin here, and today I have a few items to show you. We have the Theban Sacred Band, as discussed in my last video. We have some Macedonian Successor Cavalry, which are for my Hellenistic Greek army. We have some of North Star figurines Negoni female archers, which are in my Ptolemaic army. Lucid Eyes Amazon War Daughter archers, who are in both my armies currently. And we also have some very basically painted, I hasten to add, phalangites from my Ptolemaic army. So let's dive right in and take a look at the Theban Sacred Band. For those of you who don't know, the Theban Sacred Band was a hoplite formation numbering approximately 300 men in pairs of male lovers. Now, this has been somewhat salaciously seized on in modern history. Obviously, there is unfortunately very negative connotations towards gay romance, and it has at times become a bit of a snigger topic. Back in the days of ancient Greece, homosexuality was accepted, although it should be noted that homosexual sex was often frowned upon, sometimes wasn't legal, and that actually the homosexuality was more of this very close bond between men who were so in love with one another they would do anything to protect each other. And so the idea was then taken to form them into military units. Somewhere between 390 and 379 BC, Thebes, the new boy on the block as it were, and a bit of an underdog who appeared to have a knack of backing, if not the losing side, certainly the underdog side in any military conflict, was at war with Sparta. The Spartan hoplites were infamous, although by this point we should consider that Sparta was on the decline. However, there's few things more dangerous than a wounded, cornered lion, as many a proverb will tell us, and Thebes wasn't confident in the war. Their king decided to form a new hoplite formation that would be seen as the equal of the Spartans. And so, with their earlier statement about male lovers firmly in his mind, he formed the Sacred Band. At first, these were just elite troops to go toe-to-toe with the Spartan hoplites. However, before long, this king had begun to revolutionise hoplite warfare. Hoplite warfare was simply, you lined your men up, 8 ranks deep, you locked shields, you marched slowly towards the enemy, and you stabbed at them an awful lot. There generally was shield to shield, and the hoplite formation pushed and pushed until one formation cracked and ran. Casualties were actually very low because it was more of a glorified shoving match for a bit of stabbing, and the front ranks were generally the heavily armoured, higher class, if not upper class, certainly more noble class, who were not necessarily the most skilled fighters. Often the strongest and most skilled individuals, who had been your farmers, labourers, hunters, etc., found themselves at the back of the formation by dint of not being as financially well off and thus not being able to afford the bronze armour. And so casualties didn't necessarily rank into the hundreds and certainly not thousands. However, Sparta was a merciless foe, and battles with Sparta were often disproportionately bloody. To this end, the Theban king decided to change tack. He strung his army out in a thin line to match the Spartans, and then on his left flank, so the Spartans' right, he smashed down a formation of hoplites very deep. Now, numbers vary anywhere between 16 and 50, but if you're a formation that is 8 men deep and suddenly you're facing something at least double your depth, if not more, it's very difficult to push successfully against that. And so what happened was this super hoplite unit hit the flank of the Spartan army, ground forward until the Spartan line buckled and then snapped, naturally they fled, at which point there was suddenly a hoplite phalanx positioned on a 90-degree angle, marching down the side of the Spartan line. Now the problem with the hoplite formation is that your shield, if you're the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 8th rank, is against the back of the man in front, and you're pushing him to help push forward into the enemy formation. There is no defence against the flanks. That's where your peltasts, your other light skirmishers, your archers come into the fray. In some cases, your light cavalry. Grecian horses were more akin to a pony. There was no stirrups. They tended to be javelin armed. This formation was then able to push its way very successfully down the Spartan line and rout them. Over the next few years, the Spartans were defeated several times by the Thebans. Their warrior king, so bear in mind Sparta would have 2 kings, a warrior king and a more political king, who obviously was still an accomplished soldier, but his duty was to lead from home, whilst the warrior king was a general who held rank of king. The Spartan warrior king was slain. The Thebans then went on to expand, heading up into Macedonia and Thracia, where one of their kings was slain, and their 2nd king was eventually slain fighting Sparta, although he successfully defeated them. The Sacred Band actually only really existed as the Sacred Band we know for a period of somewhere between 9 and about 20 years. History is a bit vague, given that in this time the Greeks were not renowned for their physical record keeping, it was more oral tradition. But this formation of hoplites left such a mark upon history and upon the other Greek nations that even now, almost 2,400 years later, we still very much know about them. So, let's take a look at these gentlemen, shall we? For £28 from Warlord Games, you get 20 metal models. They come with brass spears. As you can see, you get 4 command models, 2 captains and 2 hornblowers. There would have been no standard bearers in these days, hence the lack thereof. There are 4 sculpts, and each blister comes with 2 of each model. Shields have the left arm modelled on, which I have to say I feel is a bonus. The models are unarmoured, apart from the very distinctive Theban helmet. They have no leg guards that we can really see. These are men in togas. Now, some of these togas, looking at you chaps, are almost scandalously cut, but the models are stunning. Warlord has them painted in white and a very pale, even paler than my bases, so it's sky blue, and they just look phenomenal. They were the first models I saw when I decided to get into Hail Caesar, and I was determined I was going to own these models at some point. I will be using mine as a hoplite formation, so obviously I will be taking out 2 of the command models and then just 2 models from the pack. These command models mean I will not have to order a spare sprue from Victrix for my a spare sprue from Warlord, for my Warlord hoplites. But I will probably still have to order 1, but that's by the by. But they're a fantastic set. I am delighted with them. They're the same scale as the other Warlord models. They will take the Warlord shield transfers, should I choose to use them. Now, Thebes had its own sort of city crest, which was the Great Club of Hercules. Hercules was said to have come from Thebes, and indeed the figure that we accept as being Hercules, even if not a demigod, was born in Thebes. I may buy them because it looks like a bit of a faff, to be honest, to paint. I'll probably do the shields in white rather than sky blue. I'll do the togas in the sky blue. These models' helmets, if you see here, you'll notice they do not cover the ears. Now, this was obviously very important Thebes had just revolutionised hoplite warfare. It was a system that required movement on the battlefield rather than just a progressive grind forward. Thus, being able to hear your sergeant equivalent individual shouting was very important. You'll notice it as well on the Victrix plastic hoplites that I showed in my previous video, and also on the Victrix Cavalry, which we will jump to in just a second. I have to say though, these models well worth buying. Warlord has really outdone themselves with these. I believe they're one of their newer sets, and if anybody is thinking of having a centerpiece unit in any form of Greek Hail Caesar army, you could do an awful lot worse than buying yourself these chaps. So here we have the Macedonian Successor heavy cavalry box from Victrix. It consists of 4 sprues of horses, 4 sprues of riders, and ironically it can be made in 4 different ways. I'm going to go through both the pros and the cons, for there are both, and I feel it's important to draw attention to them. Firstly though, the pros. The sculpting is absolutely first rate. The horses are absolutely beautiful. They're in motion. Even though they're in 2 halves, every unbased half of the horse has a contact point with the base for added stability. The horse with the line or other big cat pelt around it is just gorgeous. Really, really well sculpted. The horses have a lot of character. They just look like horses. There's none of the early day Games Workshop elven steeds or some of the other horses we've grown used to from other companies that just don't quite look like a horse. People often joke when they see models of naked women that they're sculpted by someone who's never seen a naked woman. I subscribe to that when it comes to horses for a lot of models I've seen as well. The riders are really nice. The bodies have the sort of sculpted muscle breastplate that the Greeks were famous for. The cloaks, if you're making companion cavalry, are flowing and dynamic. The Xystos spears, they're held in different positions. There's one that's also just on a hand so that you can attach it to an arm of your choice. It comes with the command options on every frame, so you get the trumpet in the right of the screen, you get the standard at the left, and then you get a choice of those Greek style swords as well. There's a helmet crest should you wish to give somebody it. Javelins and short spears. There's one of the short stabbing swords. There's hopalon style shields, then there's the ones that more resemble the early Roman shields. Lots of sheathed swords and 11 different heads. The detail on all of them is really good. The first few heads resemble the Theban style heads with those exposed ears, but still with that sort of rim. Then you get the later style sort of Attic helmets, that very Macedonian twin feathered one to denote an officer. Then ones that almost look Roman that you could attach plumes to, or crests rather. The sculpting is absolutely first rate. Now for the cons. So as I said, these can be made as 4 different units. That is a pro. However, if we look down at the bottom, it says that the helmets would be later Hellenistic, so you'd have to use heads HH 1 through to 4. There is no HH 1 through to 4. I even went as far as to email Victrix. Part of it I asked, am I missing a sprue? Knowing the answer was, no Martin, you're not. But to draw attention to the fact that these are, you're advertising things that aren't there, and I always find this really frustrates me. Because I don't know if they're maybe on the Greek Light Cavalry box, but it's just that way that if you're sitting looking for bets and you want all your models to look different, then they should be there. The short spears look like javelins. It actually took me a wee while to realise that some were spears and some were javelins. Now, part of this comes down to the fact that short spears are for throwing and a bit of stabbiness. They're not cavalry spears. So the short spears, for example, this one at the left and this one at the right, then obviously the hands with the javelins have the javelins. The javelins are notably shorter, but if you're in a hurry, I was building my first models whilst watching a TV show, you really might not notice that. And it's a wee bit frustrating. Those are actually really the only cons, other than the fact they don't come in a box. They come in a bag, which is all well and good, except my first sprue, all three of my horses on the bases were bent at the hooves, and if it weren't for the other models having a contact point and me using an awful lot of plastic glue, my models would have ended up just falling over, or worse, snapping. And there was nothing, if a horse snaps off at the base, you ain't getting it back on reliably. But they are a very nice kit. I do like them. They're dynamic, which is really important, particularly compared to some of the other Victrix kits for the Greeks. I won't be giving mine the standards, as the Hellenistic Greeks didn't use standards, but the bonus of this is I will be able to then attach them to pike units without having to buy metal command models. So here we have the Lucidae Amazon War Daughters 4, which is their archers, and North Star figurines Ingoni female archers. Now I apologise, I probably horrifyingly butchered the pronunciation. All I know is that these would have been Somali archers. It's not an area I know particularly much about. If anybody knows how the word should be pronounced, please let me know in the comment section below. So you may remember from my first unboxing that I had the Gripping Beast Arab Spearman / Archer box. After building them, I have to admit I was actually really disappointed. The archers didn't face down their bows because they had some pieces very obviously from the Crusader era, which I couldn't use. Very much limited the heads that I could use, and the spearmen they didn't look like peltasts. I'd always wanted the army to be a solid core of Greeks / Macedonians in the form of the phalangites, with some obviously Egyptian models in there as well, and what looked like mercenaries. So once I decided I wasn't going to use the Arab models, I got the Numidian light infantry from Victrix, plus a few models I had lying around from Hassle 3, and that became my peltasts. And then I ordered these models for my archers. Now the War Daughters were £24 for 6 models. However, the Somali archers were £6 for 5 models. So it kind of evened out in the end. The models are stunning. Both of them should carry a not safe for work sticker, in that it's a bit difficult to see, in fact probably almost impossible, on the War Daughters, but they are topless. Once they're painted up, naturally that will be apparent, and the Somali women, it's maybe a bit more obvious. It's just something to give my army a wee bit of variation and make it my army. The War Daughters are from the Ziggurat range by Lucidae, and they are stunning. They also do 2 different packs of hoplites. They do a pack of hoplites with swords as well as the 2 packs of spears, and several Amazon characters. So anybody who wants just a bit of variation in their army could do a lot worse than look at these. I've been really pleased with these models. You can see they're on bases courtesy of my 3D printer. And they just make my army look a little bit unique. As the archers in an atomic army are small units of skirmishers, it's not like I needed a lot of them. And the War Daughters will be used in my Hellenistic Greek army as well. A little bit of history. It's reckoned that the Amazons did exist, that they were Scythian warrior women, as the Scythians and what would later become the Sarmatians both valued women within their culture, and as we were a nomadic, hunting-based society, the women needed to be able to contribute as well as the men did. Thus, horse archers and archers in general could quite often be female. There was a mass grave found in the Ural Mountains of about 1,000 Scythians, over 300 of which were female who had seen combat and were buried with their weapons. That was today's little snippet I learned in YouTube. So next up, we're just going to take a peek at the Ptolemaic army in full. So quickly we can see the colour scheme I have gone. This was after googling Ptolemaic military uniforms and finding that, contrary to Total War, they were likely to have fought in predominantly red and white. So bronze armour, white for the linthrax or linen body armour, and then red for the tunics. Helmet crest will be in either red or white. Skin, I've tried to go for tanned skin colours, and I've got a few different ones just using Citadel paints that I will mix up and try. These are all just base coat wash and then second base. In time I will go back and highlight more, and obviously I will base them, but in the meantime I just wanted to try and knock some models out and get the army looking a bit better than it had been. So here's the Ptolemaic army in all its glory. We can see it's split into 3 divisions, each with a character model at the front. The main division, the Sultana's division, has the Sultana herself, 3 formations of pike-armed infantry, my 4 horse chariots, my medium cavalry, and my Agema heavy cavalry. My division, led by my Ptolemy model, has 2 units of pikes. The back unit is levy, in the same way that the back unit from the Sultana's division is levy. Here are my peltasts. The girl in green is an artisan guild model. We have some hassle-free miniatures models in here, some of their female Numidians, just to spice it up a bit. And these are the plastic Victrix Numidians. We have my war daughters, my elephant, and then the Essex miniatures camels. Now these are big, beefy models, the Essex miniature ones. They tower over the other cavalry, but I think really, really nice. I would really recommend these to anybody who has the option of camel riders. The final formation is the Vizier, and this is the smallest. She has a gap in her base. I want to put a crocodile on there, but we'll have to see. She has a snake charmer from Effin Cool Minis, and 2 models I got from a Kickstarter 6 years ago that I can't even remember what they're called. She has 2 units of pikemen, one of which is levy. She has her archers and my Numidian light cavalry. This army is 400 points, I believe, almost on the nose, but that's what it looks like assembled. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you very soon. Please feel free to like, comment and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Thank you for viewing, and enjoy the rest of your day.